Hello everybody and welcome from beautiful Switzerland, where today I will review for you these three Suzuki motorbikes. We have the V-Strom 800DE, the Suzuki GSX 8T and the Suzuki GSX 8R. They share one thing, which is the engine. Now, is this engine a good thing in all of these bikes, or is there actually a bike that really doesn't belong with this engine? More about this after the intro. As has already been teased in the opening sequence of this video, today we are gonna speak about A, the engine that these bikes have, and B, how these bikes feel. Now, let me start with the bike which, I'll take it away from the very beginning, I enjoyed the most. The V-Strom 800DE. It was a very big surprise for me to have a bike of this size and also of these dimensions in general be so good with this engine. But I guess it does not surprise all that much, because it is known that you want to have an engine with great torque when riding off-road, and off-road is definitely something this bike wants to go, since it has a 21-inch front wheel, an 18-inch rear wheel. It has fully adjustable suspension, and therefore off-roading with this bike is definitely a joy. You can pull, you can lag, you can be maybe in the wrong gear. You don't always need to be at the right speed to be able to get anywhere, and so you don't really risk simply falling behind, or even falling, or not getting up a hill, or whatever. So when it comes to that, this engine is a real masterpiece. But what about road usage? Now, the Suzuki V-Strom DE comes with tires that don't really scream off-road. On the contrary, they come with a tire that actually permits a heavy road use as well. And at the beginning, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not usually the guy to ride an adventure bike on a road, because I'm not the tallest and I'm not the biggest, and therefore I always thought these bikes are a bit heavy, they're a bit tall. They're not as sporty because of the 21-inch front wheel, but boy oh boy, let me tell you, was I wrong. So first of all, with my height, I really have zero issues with the bike's seat height. It is a very good seating position. I'm very upright, I'm very much into the bike, so the center of gravity isn't really a problem either. And when it comes to turning the bike, maybe on a tight road, then you really don't have any issues, because it will just turn in so well. Another thing that positively surprised me is the 21-inch front wheel. I thought it would not be possible to have as much fun as with a 17-inch front wheel on roads, but let me tell you, this bike really does make a lot of fun to ride on a country road. Even here in Switzerland, where the speed limits are a bit lower than what I'm used to in Italy, I was able to enjoy this bike a hell of a lot, and especially with the 21-inch front wheel, you got to feel how easily this bike turns, switches directions, and so therefore turns into tight corners and twisties so damn well. So all in all, I would say that this bike, especially with this SC Project exhaust, especially bespokely fitted for Suzuki Switzerland, is a real joy to ride on and off-road. Now, let's talk about the Suzuki GSX 8T, which is a more retro-oriented bike, as you can see from its looks, but at the same time, the power it delivers and where it delivers make it so that you don't really think you're set on a retro bike that is maybe snubbed by a few people that say, you know, retro bikes are slow and maybe boring, but that's definitely not the case with this bike. You get a very torquey engine, and more about the engine soon. And it's just so livable, so enjoyable, and even on the speed limits, like I said, we had to respect here in Switzerland, I have to say that this bike really is fun to ride where you're allowed to ride it. So you don't need to wring its neck to be able to enjoy it. On the contrary, you have all the power down low, and that just makes so much fun. This is the full power version. The GSX 8R we have there, on the contrary, is the A2 license compliant version. And let's dive a bit deeper into the differences of these two bikes, because maybe if you say you're looking for a 17-inch front wheel bike with this engine, which one suits me better? Now, if you're a fan of retro looks, then I guess the answer is pretty simple, this one. But if you say you don't really care about that, I want the thing that rides the best possible way. What do you get? Well, let me tell you, both of these bikes handle very, very well. In the twisties, on country roads, they're very stable also, since you're more oriented on the front, since your riding position is more forward leaning, especially when compared to the V-Strom, where you're more upright and where you have longer suspension travel. So it's definitely possible to ride both of these bikes in a very sporty way. And I guess the differences that can be found are mostly looks, yes, looks definitely, but also the seating position. So while you have a very standard naked bike seating position with naked bike typical handlebars on the Suzuki GSX AT, you have a very, you have a sportier, okay, let's say a sportier seating position on the GSX 8R. Now, while I do say that it is sportier, I don't mean it in a way that compares it to maybe a ZX 6R or a Suzuki GSX R600. It's definitely not an aggressive seating position. So if you were hesitant because you didn't know if you could do 100 kilometers, maybe 200 kilometers a day with this bike, let me tell you, you absolutely can. You won't have any pain in your back or in your wrists. So therefore, seating position is upright, is nice, it's more a sport touring bike. It does look very sporty, especially in this bespoke Swiss edition, the Evo Black series, which comes with a few goodies, like this windshield and also frame sliders. And so therefore, what I can attest to is that this bike, as well as this bike, they're great fun for road use. Now, while I say road use, let me also briefly speak about the sporty character of this engine. This engine really belongs on the road, and in my opinion, the GSX 8R was never meant to be a bike that's brought regularly to the track, because the engine's characteristic is so that I would say up until 2/3 of the rev band you have a lot of torque and you have a lot of fun, but after that it really flattens. So there's not much going on at the top end, and you will spend most of your time at the top end when you bring a bike to the track. And therefore, if you're looking for a track-oriented bike and you're like, can I bring this bike mainly on track days because maybe like the aesthetics, or you're a Suzuki fan, then I would say I would suggest getting another bike more suited for that. Maybe not a two-cylinder, or at least not the Suzuki 800 parallel twin two-cylinder. Now, speaking of the two-cylinder engine we have here, we have a 776cc two-cylinder engine with a 270-degree crank, which means that you get the best of a V2 engine, which means very good sound, very, very good sound, which we got to enjoy with the SC Project mounted on the Suzuki V-Strom 800. But at the same time, you get lots of more torque, because V2 engines are known to produce more torque, and at the same time more traction, and traction is something you always want. So the 270-degree crankshaft leaves us with lots of benefits, but at the same time we know that a V2 engine has its downsides. For example, it is heavier on maintenance, and also it produces a lot of vibration. Now, what does Suzuki do? Suzuki thinks and says, okay, let's counterbalance that. How? With the cross balancer. Suzuki mounted two 90-degree cross balancers on top of the engine. It's a patent that they registered, and that allows them to reduce the perceived vibrations on these bikes. And so what that means is that you get to enjoy all of the benefits of an inline-2 engine with all of the benefits of a V2 engine. And now that sounds like a great compromise. And while Suzuki isn't the only manufacturer that does that, it's really well done. They really did a good job with it in the 800cc engine. So let us briefly summarize. The Suzuki V-Strom 800DE is a great bike for anybody that's looking for on-road use and off-road use. Also for riders that are about my height or about my weight. The Suzuki GSX AT is for everybody that's looking for a comfortable, maybe touring bike with retro looks, or also just a naked bike with retro looks, because I, for myself, enjoy retro bikes very much. And then we have the GSX 8R, which is for all those who want a sporty look, but at the same time don't want to suffer back pains or wrist pain at the end of the day, and who want to go on an enjoyable ride on country roads without necessarily being tempted to break the law, because as we know, four-cylinder bikes, they rev all the way up and then the power is all hidden there, and so you easily fall into the temptation of revving it out even more and going way too fast. With this bike, that problem is a bit less present, and so therefore they're all great choices. Another thing I need to say is the A2 license restriction, which was very well done by Suzuki. You don't really feel that this bike is A2 license compliant, that they tuned it down, that you only have 48 horsepower instead of the full 80 something horsepower, 83 I think. And so therefore, if you're looking for an A2 bike that you can then open up once you're a bit older, once you did the other license, once you got the other license, this bike is a really, really good choice. You get to buy one, keep one, you don't have the hassle of having to sell and then rebuy later. And so therefore Suzuki brings us a lot of options for a very fun time on road. And with that being said, I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave me a like and also a comment if you have any questions about these bikes, or if you yourself ride or rode one of these bikes, let me know about it in the comments. And if it's a question, I will be happy to answer it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you soon again. Goodbye.